All right, good morning, everyone. Fantastic. First of all, I just want to say, as this is the last one of 2024, I've really enjoyed these Fridays. I find that just sort of a little, piece of information to take into the weekend and Shabbos and sort of to close it. I'm privileged on Mondays. I start off with the staff at UJ, and it's sort of a way to start the week. And I sort of see this as a bookend on the last side. So I just wanted to share my appreciation for this opportunity and looking forward to continuing it in the 2025 year as well. But I figured even though it's usually something connected to the Parsha, I thought that maybe going into Chanukah pays to give something that was there. Now, to be honest, and I spoke a little bit about this at the staff L'chaim at Federation a day or two ago. There's been so many. If you turn on any recording of a pre-Hanukkah party now, always the entire message is about Hanukkah is a time of light, and light gets away the darkness, and we need more light, and that's all true and good. So then the question is, what can we add? Because it is true and good. I don't mean to minimize that message. It's hugely important, and the way to fight darkness is by lighting light. But we've all heard that probably 17 different times at all our pre-Hanukkah things with people that are dressed very similar to me saying the exact same message. So the question is, what we can add that maybe is a little bit, more, a little different, not better, but also it takes a very different approach to understanding it. And when I asked the chevra at the staff meeting, what are the miracles that we celebrate on Hanukkah? So there were two primary answers that people gave. And if we had a little bit more time and it was set up for interaction, I'd probably throw it out there and ask you for the answers. But I'm going to assume we'd all say the same two answers. On one hand, there was the tremendous battle that took place, right? So against all odds, if a person was a betting person, there was no reason why the Jewish people should have beat the Greek well-oiled machine. And it wasn't like we had even today where we can still say if a person really takes a step back and looks at the statistical numbers about the reality that Israel can defend itself amongst like tens of nations that really deep down are more than happy to try to destroy it and had lots of, as we're seeing now, I get surprised every day they speak about, destroying more of their capabilities and more of the capabilities. There are more launchers in Hezbollah. There's more, like, just the amount of artillery that was just pointed in our direction compared to our tiny little state. I mean, it's you have to take a step back at a certain point and just say it's absolutely miraculous that Israel has existed since 1948. And as we all know, day one when we started the country, like there wasn't a day of peace. Right as soon as it was declared, all the nations like it. So that story is a repeated story, and it's a story we saw by Hanukkah as well. There's no reason why this ragtag group of zealots that were in a well-oiled machine were able to go ahead and battle off the Greek army, which gives us a tremendous amount of hope. As I don't remember who said it, you can remind me, but in order to be a realist, you have to believe in miracles. I think it might have been Ben Gurion, right? In order to be a realist, the Jew has to believe in miracles because if you look around, it doesn't make sense. And that's miracle number one, camp. The battle that took place, right, is nothing short of a miracle. The second miracle that everybody says is the fact that this oil lasted for 8 crazy nights, right? It was only a small little oil. By all means, it should have lasted one night, and it lasted for so many nights. And, sometimes the question is asked if you had to match these two miracles. I mean, it's kind of strange. Like the light is a cool trick. It's kind of like if you go to a magic show somewhere and David Copperfield, I'm sure he's not the cool in magician these days anymore. There's lots of other ones. But, he gets on stage and he does, well, look at this. I have this tremendous miracle. It lasts for longer. You'd be like, that's nice. I don't know how he did it, but you wouldn't be like, wow. And the miracle of the war, if you stop and think about that, that should be so massive, right? That we should like commemorate that more in a certain way. But I'd like to suggest that maybe both of them actually have the same root at what the miracle really is, which is a very different miracle than what we see, which like I wrote in the email that the goal of this is to try to say what's the most important miracle we have to remember in 2024, and shall we say since October 7th. See, I think the most amazing miracle that happens is the spirit of the Jewish people. I mean, if you think about what was happening in the time of the Greek ruling, and Jews were looking around, they said, "That's it, we're finished." Like they've almost decimated our tradition, our identity, assimilation into it was all. It was an impossibility, and no one was standing up to them, and they were just the almighty government. If you were a Jew during that time, it would have been so easy, and they didn't have any lobbying groups, and we didn't have any like. It was just like the game's over, right? And the reality is that somehow, somewhere, there were people that said we're not willing to give up. and they continue. And if you look at the concept of what happened with the miracle of the light, I'd like to suggest the miracle wasn't that it lasted for 8 nights. The miracle that started it was that after the destruction of their temple and everything was violated, they searched frantically to find something, some hope that they could, from that little bit, start to rejuvenate and regenerate the entire Jewish people and infrastructure. And they were able to find this pure little flask of oil, which the deeper sources say that represents that deep, pure part of the neshama inside each and every one of us, what's often called in Yiddish the pintel yid, which no matter what never goes out. It's impossible to destroy that. And that's the miracle that happens on both sides. When they're up against the greatest army, inside they say, wait, but look at who we are and what we are. And somehow they find this courage. It's not all of them at first. It's a few of them that stand up in response and then bring back the glory of the entire Jewish people. And with the temple, when they say that's it, it's destroyed, there's nothing, we can't even start it, they say, no, 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 let's look. I'm sure somewhere, if we dig deep enough, we will find it. And I think the principle and the message over there is that it's not so much that our miracles are what happened to the Jewish people, but rather it's what happens through the Jewish people. It's the fact that we never give up that hope that's there. We believe Hashem, you know what? Listen, even though this is happening and it looks like it's the darkest period of Jewish history, especially at the moments where it hits, and this happens on a national level, it happens on a personal level with any tragedy or difficulty that a person has, and it's easier to say, and which is why I think it's so important, right? Whenever a person faces any challenge, right, deep down they have to realize the miracle of Chanukah, of in the darkest, coldest place that could exist, there's always the ability to access that flame. It doesn't mean it's a given, right? It means a person has to work to get there. And as you can imagine, obviously in the role of sort of, rabbi in the community, the worst questions you always get are the ones that are the difficult and the why did this happen? And there's no answer for it at that moment that you can say this is the reason. But there is chizuk and strength in knowing that the Jewish miracle of existence is realizing that there's always that flame deep down that a person can access to get through any period of darkness. And if we think about the Jewish people, that's exactly what it was. At the October 7th or 8th, right? Everybody thought, okay, there was this existential, we didn't know what was facing. But what happened was, instantly, somehow, there was a deep place inside which brought this roaring soul out of everybody to be able to not just fend off, but to overcome and come back in a strength which otherwise couldn't have existed. And you can say the miracle of Chana, which lasted for 8 crazy nights, if you look at what happened as a result of how we fought back and where we are, we're not there yet. And what's very interesting, actually, I never knew this, but I learned about this on Sunday from a Rabbi Ilan Mazer at a shir program we had on Sunday morning, where he said even after the Hanukkah miracle was over and we were back in the temple, the Greeks were still there and they were still causing some trouble. It wasn't like now everything was perfect 100%. But when we look back at that time, we say, wow, we went from the point of destruction, despair, and utter annihilation to rebuilding, to strength, to light, to miracles. And yeah, there were still challenges that happened. But you know what? It wasn't the challenges that we continue to focus on that is the focal point of the story. It's the fact that look at where we are now. And I think that's such an important message going into this Hanukkah, where we could either look at saying, you know what, we're not there yet 100%. But on the flip side, if we look at what's happened with our people and what we're doing and where we are, there are miracles that are all around us, more than 8 candles of miracles. There's miracles that have happened on a daily basis. When I wake up and I think the fact that 80% of the Syrian army has now been neutralized and that they're not that happened overnight. It wasn't like, oh, well, this was a series of you wake up and things happen right, left, and center. And I believe that as Jews, we have to realize that that's because deep down when we dig to our soul, to our neshama, to that flame, and it's the pure flame. There were lots of oil all over the place, and there's lots of different things we try, but they said, no, no, we're going to only light it with the purest of oils. I've got to get to that space inside of me, which is the purest part of my soul. What's my identity and essence about? And from that place, we light. From that place, we fight. And then when we do that, we see miracles that happen. And therefore, I think those 2 Hanukkah miracles of the physical battle and the spiritual battle, the fending off of the enemies and the rebuilding of the temple in Israel as it was, come from the same space. the miracle of the Jewish spirit, the soul, the flame inside of each and every one of us that has the ability, if we dig deep, to be able to fight back in a way that creates more light in this world than we could ever imagine. It's against all odds. That's what all of Hanukkah is about, right? If we had more time, maybe next year, the whole number 8, the reason why it's 8 days of Hanukkah, 8 always represents, the Maharal teaches us, the supernatural. 7 is always natural. There's 7 colors in the spectrum. There's 7 notes in harmony. There's 7 days of creation. 7 is the number of physical, of what's called teva. 8 is always me'ala teva. It's beyond the physical. That's actually why they say we light oil. The word for oil is shmona, is 8. Comes from the same shorish, the same root as shemen, right? Shemen is oil. And oil, what's amazing about oil is actually the oil you don't even light. The oil is what allows you to light a flame that transcends the oil. It's not even a physical thing, the flame that's there, but it gives, the physical oil gives the ability to create something bigger. That's even why in Hebrew, if we can kibitz, it's not a good thing if anybody comes up to you and calls you shmena, right? If you say you're full, you're sovea, that's 7, sheva. If you're overfull, or otherwise known as fat, shamen is fat, shmena, right, means you're extending your physical boundaries. Sovea, 7, is full, means I have everything inside of me is full, but that's just nature. Shmona always transcends. Hanukkah is always about transcending the physical borders and limitations that we face. And like we said, Jews believe in reality, and our reality incorporates the concept of miracle, of things happening 8 crazy nights, or in our case, thousands of years of history, which go ahead and override every logical reason why we should still exist. And if we remember that on this Hanukkah, then going into the new year, we realize, the new Gregorian year, we realize that those miracles don't have to end. That candle that was lit back then continues to burn now, will continue, as we know, to burn with the Jewish people to infinity. And please God, we should merit that one day soon, and I believe it is sooner than ever, we'll not just light our little menorahs in our little windows, but we'll go back and light that big menorah that's sitting there in the old city casing in the Rova, if you've been, that's just ready to go when the time is right, that the Jewish people will light the ultimate menorah that we're waiting to relight as well. So Chevra, wishing everyone a beautiful Hanukkah. We should merit to see miracles like we've never seen in 2025. And please God, always remember that no matter what we're facing, that pure jar of oil is inside each and every one of us, and that I believe is the greatest miracle of Hanukkah. Chevra, have an awesome Shabbos. Wishing everyone a great vacation time, and looking forward to seeing everyone when you're back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom, Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Chag Urim Sameach.